The area of a trapezoid can be a little trickier than the other ones because it's got a lot more parts to its formula. So the area of a trapezoid is area is equal to 1/2 times its height between the two bases times the sum of the two bases. Now the reason why this works is because it's really, if you think about it, they're really two triangles. You can cut it this way and you get a triangle, two triangles this way, two triangles this way, two triangles this way. They'd have the same height. You can see regardless of the triangle, it would share this height here and this height here. They just have different bases. And that's how this formula comes together. When we look at the one on the left, we know that its area is going to be 1/2 of its height times the sum of the bases. They give us all the information we need here. We know 1/2, they tell us the height is 20, and the sum of the bases will be the top base, which is 20, which is 15, plus its bottom base, which is 30. That becomes 1/2 times 20 times the combination of those two bases, which is 45. Half of 20 and 10 times the remaining 45 will give you 450 square inches for its area. We look over at the other one. It's exactly the same. Different numbers, though. We know the area is going to be 1/2 of its height between the two bases times the two bases added together. So that's 1/2. Its height is 14. Its bases, when added together, will be 10 plus 20, which is 1/2 times 14. Now that I know that these together, it's going to be 30. Half of 14 is 7, and 7 times the remaining 30 will give us an area of 210 inches squared. For these three, pause the video, try them, and then I'll go over the method for each of them. Remember that in every case here that the area is equal to 1/2 of the height between the two bases times the sum of the two bases. Okay, starting with this first one, I know that its area is going to be 1/2 times the height, which is 6, times the sum of the bases, which is 18, plus 8. That becomes 1/2 of 6 times the sum of the bases, which is 26. Half of 6 is 3, and 3 times 26 will give us 78 centimeters squared. For the middle one, we know that area is 1/2 times the height times the sum of the top of the and bottom base. So that's going to be 1/2. The height between them listed here is 5 times the two bases added together will be 9 plus 5. So that becomes 1/2 times 5 times 14. I'll probably do half of the 14 instead of half of the 5. Since it's all multiplication due to commutative property, I can do whatever I want, but I don't want to get a decimal if I don't have to. So I'm going to do half of 14, which gives me 7, and 7 times 5 will give me the area of this shape as 35 square inches. Our last one, we're looking at area is equal to 1/2 of the height between the bases times the sum of those two bases. So I see that the height is the distance between the two bases. It looks like it's 18, so it's going to be half of 18 times the sum of the bases, which is 12 plus 6. So that's going to be 1/2 of 18 times 18. That becomes 9 times 18, and the area of this one ends up being 162 square feet. Sometimes when you're doing the area of a trapezoid, they'll actually give you the area and something else will be missing. In this case, if you look at this one, what's missing is this height. But they do give us the area. So if I know the formula is area is 1/2 times the height times the sum of the bases, I can use that to work backwards. So in this case, they tell me that the area is already 810. 810 is equal to 1/2 times the height, which I don't know, times the sum of the bases. So I can add those two bases together. I still got 810 is equal to 1/2 times the height times, in this case, the sum of the bases is 60. If I take half of 60, I got that 810 is equal to 30 times the height. And if I divide both sides by 30, the height ends up being 27. So now I know what the height is. It's 27. I just worked backwards. Over here, same thing. I know that area is equal to 1/2 of the height times the sum of the bases. So I'll put in what I do know. I know that the area for this one, it says the area is 540. So 540 is equal to 1/2 times the height, which I don't know, times the sum of the bases, which is 22 plus 38. So 540 is equal to half of the height times the sum of the bases, which is 60. Half of 60, again, is 30. And if I divide both sides by 30, I get that the height ends up being 18 inches. Try these two, see if you can find the height. Okay, so for the first one, they tell me it's 173 is the area, and that is 1/2 times the height times the sum of the bases, which is 23 plus 46. If I add those together, I get that it's 1/2 times the height, and the sum of the bases is 69. If I take half of 69, I'll get that it's 34.5 times the height. Now, I'll probably need a calculator here to do this one. That's okay. I'll just take 11.73 and divide it by 34.5, which ends up being 34 meters for this height. For the other one, they give us that the area is 621, and that's equal to 1/2 times the height, which we don't know, time of the sums of the bases, which is 12 plus 42. So 621 is equal to 1/2 times the height, and when I put those together, I get 54. Well, I know that half of 54, I can use my calculator if I needed to, 27 times the height, and then I just need to divide both sides by 27, which, when I use the calculator, gives me 23, and it ends up being 23 feet.